Hi, students. It's Miss Adams again. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my travels. If you'll recall, I was with a group of teachers traveling around Mexico. In this part of this video, I'm going to tell you about some things around Mexico City. This is the last part of my trip to Mexico. I had a Fulbright Hayes scholarship, so I was there really learning things that I would be teaching to students. And so I'm teaching it to you. All right. Mexico, I told you previously, has a lot of Catholics. And the patron saint of Mexico is the Virgin of Guadalupe. And the story goes that a young man was walking and someone appeared to him and said she was Mary, the mother of Christ. And she wanted him to go tell the bishop of the church to build a church on that location where she appeared to him. And so he went and told the bishop, and I don't think it would surprise you to hear that he didn't believe him. And so she appeared to the young man a number of times. And at one point in time, he even took a different route to try to avoid her. She appeared to him there, and she told him to pick some flowers, some roses, and to put them in his cloak and carry them and show them to the bishop. And then when he got there and he opened it up, there was a picture of her on the cloak that he was wearing. So in that location, then they built the first church. And Mexico City was an island in a lake, and then the lake bed dried up. And so a lot of the city is on area that was lake bed. And so it is kind of uneven. It's also an area that has a lot of earthquakes. So there was a huge earthquake in the 1980s, and have been other earthquakes that have caused a lot of damage and killed people. So some of these churches were not structurally sound, or they've just built different ones to replace. And this is one of the original churches there. The grounds are really beautiful with lots of planting and statues. This is the newest church, and people come on a pilgrimage, just like people go to Mecca if they're a Muslim, or they might go to Jerusalem if they're Jewish or Christian. People in Mexico like to go, and it's important pilgrimage to visit this area of the Virgin of Guadalupe. Some like really pretty waters. Here I am standing there. Must have been a kind of a hot day. And you can see inside one of the churches, the older one, more water, and some statues. You can see the Virgin there appearing to the native people. The grounds were just so pretty. Look at that other church with all the beautiful tile work on it. There she is, appearing to the indigenous people. I think I think they call it the Indian church. Here's this clock tower that they built. Oh, there's the Indian church. And lots of different statues on the grounds. You can see people coming and going, just a huge area that you can walk around, all different buildings there. So here's the picture, and you can travel by it on kind of like an escalator, but a flat one, that kind of conveyor belt that you might ride at an airport. Either you can go past it and see the picture. You can go inside the church. They were having a church service while we were there. There's a statue of the Pope. It's a really neat place to go to, but I did want to show this because I wanted to point out to you. It says, kindly do not enter unless you are decently dressed. No shorts, please. So one of the things they said to us when we were in Mexico was, people dress up more in other places besides the United States. They expect you to be dressed in a certain way. So they said never wear shorts like in Mexico City. And even we went out to the pyramids, they said it would be okay because it's kind of hot out there. But in general, they want you to dress up a little bit more. So I just wanted you to think, if you're going to a church and you're traveling in a place that is an important place for people's religion, you want to be respectful of them. So lots of people making a pilgrimage. This was the tallest city, the tallest building in the city of Mexico. I'm not sure it still is, but it's the Latin American Tower. It's built because they're on this area with a lot of earthquakes, they have like these, it goes way down into the ground and then they pump water into it to keep it stable into the substructure. So lots of parks in Mexico City. There's a Latin American tower. This building, they said, was built by the person that built the Empire State Building, so it has some similar characteristics. This is where you can go and see the Ballet Folklorico, which is like traditional dancing. I went there on my first trip, but on this trip, it was being remodeled, so we didn't have a chance to go. Mexico City is one of the biggest cities in the world, maybe 13 million people or more. It's super crowded, um, really, really busy. Here is the Zocalo. You can see that huge Mexican flag, and that's the presidential palace. There's the National Cathedral or Church, and lots of cars driving around, lots of smog. They have rules where you can only drive your car every other day. The first time I went to Mexico, it was so much worse. I remember getting off the plane and saying, "What is that smell?" And they said, "Well, that's the smell of Mexico City because it's so smoggy." And they've really worked hard to improve it. So the first time I went to Mexico, I was able to visit this archaeological site. They were building a building and they found these Aztec ruins. This is called, Mexico City was called Tenochtitlan by the Aztecs, and they were first excavating it. And I had a photo of it that I can't find. I guess I must have taken it to school and somehow lost it. But they were literally had a person was lying on a mattress, like a skinny single mattress, and they had a spoon and they were just digging. And it took years to excavate. So in this area, just right by the Zocalo, is where they did a bunch of excavation. It's kind of fascinating to me that all the center of Aztec ruins was right there next to where they built the government buildings, the important government buildings of Mexico City. And so we saw, we're going into the presidential palace. You can see, I told you that there were all these muralists. These are murals by Diego Rivera, and they tell all the story of Mexico. You can see how similar this is to like the kind of pattern or design that the Romans might have made with water and with the arch. Here are some of Diego Rivera's different murals. They're all up and down the stairs, and they tell all the whole story of Mexico. And each one has its own, tale to tell of the native people, them all kinds of stories. So the Spanish coming. All right. And if you're interested in art at all, learn about Rivera and his wife Frida Kahlo, who also was an amazing artist. Here you can buy all kinds of stuff. So here's where the ruins are. My understanding and what I've read is that the Spanish knocked down the pyramid part of it, but they covered up a lot of the other places. So the part where I saw them like digging and excavating, since then they have done a ton of work. El Templo Mayor, I think this is called, where you can go and see what was there. There were some Aztec dances taking place there. And then we had a really nice meal right above there in a restaurant where we got to sit outside and they were making us tortillas. So then we maybe picked up a few snacks or treats. There's that Latin American tower. Now I'm back out at Teotihuacan. It's maybe an hour or so outside of Mexico City. The Aztecs lived here, but they did not build the pyramids. The people who built the pyramids either died of either a drought or some kind of illness, and the Aztecs came later. And you can see, remember when I was there before in the winter, how dry it was, and now it's so green. It was kind of a hot day and I forgot to wear a hat. So in the pictures here, I am wearing a hat that I bought from a person who was selling them off of a stick of hats. So here are some of the structures. They're still excavating. They found like a huge tunnel in recent years right before that, and they've done some more excavating in this area after. You can see this area where I would told you that there's always someone guarding it, but they're also working on it. Still more excavation. People are climbing up there. Just doesn't seem safe to me. There I am with my hat. I left the hat in Mexico when I in my hotel room when I left. It was just really hot, and I think it looks to me like I might be getting a sunburn already on my shoulders while I was there. It's a lot to climb. Here's part that had been newly excavated that I didn't see the first time I was there, where you can see that some of it was painted. Also, I just want to point out some of that reminds me of the Greek key. Doesn't it remind you of what the Greeks drew in their Greek key design? I'm up on the pyramid of the moon, looking over to the left. That's a pyramid of the sun. The Avenue of the Dead. That's where they did some of their rituals. You can see people now, they've put some kind of railing with a rope on it so you can hold on to that on your way up. See all the people traveling on it. Or going down, it doesn't feel that safe. All right, so Mexico City has a park called Chapultepec Park, which is Chapultepec named after the grasshoppers. And you can go into the park, and we went up to Chapultepec Castle. This is where Maximilian and his lovely wife, Carlotta, that's how they always referred to her. Carlotta lived here when he was the Emperor of Mexico. And it's really beautiful. They also have like a lot of pre-Columbian indigenous people's art, which I took these pictures and then they told me I had to stop. Here's some beautiful on the rooftop, some beautiful grounds, and you can look in at all these rooms that they wouldn't let us take pictures of. The eagle on the cactus with the snake in its mouth, that's on the Mexican flag. It's a sign that they were told that they should settle there. You can see how pretty it is. Maximilian went up and down the Paseo de Reforma, that street, in his carriage. There's a street. It's kind of like in France, like the Champs-Élysées. Here's the grasshopper. You can ride in boats. It's a really pretty park. Lots of people, Mexico City is a really big city. So people like to get out and see a little nature, buy a few things. So this was really the end of my trip to Mexico. And then I flew to Ottawa, the capital of Canada, for 3 weeks in Canada.